You've seen it, right? A roller coaster, completely upside down on a track, and it just stays there. How does that even work? Well, today we're going to get into the story of energy. It's this incredible idea that connects that coaster to, well, the entire universe.
All right, let's just jump right in with a puzzle that really messes with your head. So picture this, a cart, right at the very top of a loop-the-loop. You've got gravity pulling it down, and get this, the track is also pushing it down. So everything's pointing straight to the floor. Why in the world doesn't it just plummet?
Okay, to crack this little gravity-defying mystery, we need to think about more than just the forces pushing and pulling. The real secret, it's all about what the cart was doing before it even got to the top.
So, here's the crucial difference. Think about just dropping an apple. Its starting speed is 0, right? So when gravity kicks in, it just falls straight down. Easy. But our cart is a totally different story. It's already moving with a ton of speed, but sideways.
And that right there, that's the key. When you take that huge sideways motion and just nudge it a little bit downwards with gravity, you don't make it fall. No, you just turn it. You just change its direction a tiny bit. That's what keeps it glued to the track, moving forward. So here's the wild part. It is falling. It's constantly falling, just not straight down.
You know, this whole idea of falling around something, it's kind of mind-bending, right? But it's not just for roller coasters. This is the exact same principle that keeps the moon circling the Earth and all the planets orbiting the sun.
Professor Ramamurti Shankar put it perfectly. He said, it is constantly falling, but the Earth is falling under it. That is in fact how you launch a bullet into orbit. So just imagine that. You fire a bullet so fast that as it starts to fall, the Earth's curve drops away beneath it at the exact same rate. It's literally in a state of endless free fall. It's always falling, but it never gets any closer to the ground. That, my friends, is what an orbit is.
Okay, so solving the cart problem with forces is pretty cool. But what if I told you there's a much deeper, much more powerful way to look at this? A fundamental law that explains not just the cart, but, well, pretty much everything. And that's where we bring in this amazing concept called energy. Think about it like this. When you get down to the super weird subatomic level, a lot of Newton's classic rules, they kind of fall apart. But the idea of energy, it's totally robust. It survives the quantum revolution. It's so solid that when it looked like energy was just disappearing from nuclear reactions, scientists didn't say, oh, the law is wrong. No way. They said, there must be a new particle we haven't seen yet carrying that energy away. And they were right. That's how they discovered the neutrino. That's how powerful this idea is.
So if we're going to get a handle on this super powerful law, we need to learn its language. You can think of it like learning the currency of the universe. And the first bill we need to understand is something called work.
Now, in physics, work has nothing to do with your 9 to 5. It's much simpler. It's what happens when you push or pull on something. That's the force. And it actually moves. That's the distance. Force times distance. It's the oomph you put in to change how something is moving, and we measure that oomph in joules.
Okay, so you do some work on an object. What does that actually do? Well, it changes a very specific thing we call kinetic energy. Kinetic energy is just the energy of motion. That's it. Anything that's moving has it. The faster it goes, or the heavier it is, the more kinetic energy it's got.
And this is where it all clicks together with something called the work-energy theorem. It sounds fancy, but it's really beautiful and simple. It just says that the amount of work you put in is exactly equal to the change in kinetic energy you get out. It's a perfect cause and effect relationship, no more, no less.
But wait, there's more. This theorem, it's just the first step. It's the key that unlocks a kind of universal accounting system for energy. And that system leads us to one of the most powerful and, honestly, beautiful laws in all of physics.
Okay, so for special kinds of forces, physicists call them conservative forces, think gravity or a spring, we can do a really clever trick. We can say that the work done by these forces is really just a change in a kind of stored energy, which we call potential energy. So when we swap work for change in potential energy in our theorem and just shuffle the equation around a bit, something amazing happens. We find out that the total energy you start with is exactly the same as the total energy you end with.
And that is the law of conservation of energy. It's huge. It means that in any isolated system, you can't create new energy and you can't destroy it. You can only change its form. You can turn potential energy into kinetic energy, like a rock falling. But the grand total?
The total amount of energy in that system never, ever changes. It's always conserved.
Now, this law seems totally unbreakable, right? But think about this. You slide a book across a table. It slows down and stops. Where did its kinetic energy go? It just vanished. It feels like we just broke this perfect universal law. And that's because there's one force we deal with every single day that seems to be a real rule breaker.
Friction, the bad boy of physics. It's the reason everything eventually grinds to a halt. It's like a tiny leak in our perfect energy system, letting that nice, neat mechanical energy, the kinetic plus the potential, just drain away. But where's it leaking to?
See, the reason friction is such a troublemaker is that we can't give it a potential energy. It's not like gravity. The force of friction doesn't just care about where you are, it cares about which way you're going. At the exact same point, friction could be pushing you left or it could be pushing you right, so it can't store energy in the same way a spring can. Instead, it just gets rid of it, dissipates it, and it usually does that by turning it into heat.
So it turns out friction doesn't actually break the law at all. It just reveals that the law is bigger than we thought. The energy didn't disappear, it just transformed into something else we couldn't easily see, the heat from the sliding book. The total amount is still conserved. Which brings us to a really fascinating final thought. If this fundamental currency of the universe isn't just about motion, and it isn't just about heat, what else can it become?